Michelle Yeoh's Oscar-winning film is more Star Trek than Section 31. When Michelle Yeoh accepted the 2023 Academy Award for Best Actress for Everything Everywhere All at Once, audiences around the world celebrated her trailblazing career. For fans of Star Trek, however, the win felt doubly significant. Here was Philippa Georgiou, the former captain of the USS Shenzhou and later Empress of the Terran Empire, taking home cinema's top honor. Paramount had already announced a Section 31 streaming movie starring Yeoh, a project promising to showcase her character's morally murky adventures in Starfleet's clandestine Black Ops division. But in many ways, Everything Everywhere All at Once, with its emotional core, multiversal chaos, and unapologetic heart, feels far closer to the spirit of Star Trek than Section 31 ever could. Yeoh's Oscar-winning film embodies the optimistic, humanistic DNA of Gene Roddenberry's original vision, even as the franchise prepares to launch one of its darkest spin-offs yet. In looking at the themes, character arcs, and creative energy behind Yeoh's award-winning movie, it becomes clear that Everything Everywhere All at Once isn't just another sci-fi spectacle. It's practically a lost episode of Star Trek, where compassion triumphs over cynicism, diversity fuels the story engine, and humanity's messy potential is celebrated rather than hidden in shadow. The multiverse as a final frontier. When Everything Everywhere All at Once burst onto the indie scene, critics praised its genre-bending audacity, a wild mix of martial arts, absurdist comedy, family drama, and multiverse science fiction. At first glance, this seems worlds away from Star Trek. Yet the core concept, the multiverse, is something Trekkies have been exploring since Mirror first aired in 1967. In that landmark episode, Captain Kirk and his landing party swap places with their doppelgangers from a brutal parallel reality. Over decades, Star Trek has returned to this conceit to examine how small shifts in morality, leadership, or luck can shape entire civilizations. Everything Everywhere takes this same playground of infinite possibilities and asks, what if you could actually experience all the lives you might have lived? Yeoh's character, Evelyn Wang, becomes a kind of accidental starship captain navigating the chaos of countless realities. She must chart a path not through space, but through the uncharted territory of her own choices and relationships. That's as Star Trek as it gets, an ordinary person thrust into extraordinary circumstances, facing ethical dilemmas that echo across worlds. By contrast, the forthcoming Section 31 project is designed to showcase espionage, covert operations, and moral compromise. While potentially gripping, that tone skews closer to 24 or Jason Bourne than to Roddenberry's utopian ideal. The multiverse of Everything Everywhere, on the other hand, offers a literal embodiment of seeking out new life and new civilizations by letting its protagonist live them all, one leap at a time. Diversity as a narrative engine. From the start, Star Trek prided itself on showcasing a diverse crew working together as equals. Yeoh herself, as Captain Georgiou, became a symbol of that tradition, one of the first Asian women to command a starship on screen. Everything Everywhere doubles down on this ethos, centering an Asian American immigrant family in a genre that historically marginalizes such stories. The Daniels directors Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert crafted a story where the immigrant experience isn't window dressing, but the foundation of the universe-spanning plot. Evelyn's fractured relationships with her husband and daughter mirrored generational tensions within diasporic communities. Yet the film never loses its sense of joy and possibility. This resonates deeply with Star Trek's best episodes, where alien cultures serve as metaphors for contemporary struggles, but also as opportunities for mutual growth. Think of Balance of Terror, using the Romulan conflict to explore Cold War paranoia, or Deep Space Nine's Byron arc echoing real-world occupations. Section 31, by contrast, is about secrecy and elitism, an organization operating outside Starfleet's public ideals. While such a premise can yield powerful drama as DS9 proved with its morally ambiguous arcs, it runs counter to the inclusive optimism that has long defined the franchise. Yeoh's Oscar-winning film doesn't shy away from darkness or pain, but instead of doubling down on cynicism, it channels those struggles into empathy and connection. That's Star Trek in a nutshell. Infinite diversity in infinite combinations, not as a slogan, but as an engine for storytelling. The power of radical empathy. At its heart, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a story about radical empathy. Evelyn's journey through the multiverse teaches her that every person, every version of her daughter Joy, every alternative self, is fighting their own battles. She discovers that kindness isn't weakness, it's the only force capable of diffusing cosmic despair. This is exactly the kind of moral resolution that Star Trek traditionally champions. Think of Captain Picard refusing to kill the Borg-transformed Hugh, or Captain Janeway offering the Borg cooperative alliances rather than annihilation. Over and over, the franchise posits that compassion and diplomacy are more powerful than phasers. Contrast this with what we know about Section 31. The organization's trademark move is to achieve necessary outcomes through assassinations, covert manipulations, and engineered plagues. It's the Federation's dirty laundry, the dark mirror of its own ideals. A movie focused on that world might deliver suspense, but it's unlikely to offer the cathartic affirmation of humanity that Everything Everywhere does. Yo herself seems aware of this tonal shift. In interviews, she's expressed excitement about giving Philippa Georgiou a more nuanced arc, a chance to redeem the former emperor and explore her contradictions. Perhaps Section 31 will surprise us by leaning into redemption and ethical growth rather than grim darkness. But as it stands, her Oscar performance already embodies the arc many fans might hope to see, a flawed, hardened woman who chooses kindness over control, humor and absurdity as Starfleet values. Another reason Everything Everywhere All at Once feels like Star Trek. It's funny, not just witty, but playfully absurd. Hot dog fingers, googly eyes, raccoon chefs. This is a movie unafraid to embrace the ridiculous while telling a serious story. Star Trek at its best has always understood the value of humor. From the original series' quippy Spock MC coy banter to Lower Decks' full-blown animated satire, the franchise recognizes that hope and laughter often go hand in hand. Even in tense episodes, a well-timed joke can humanize the characters and remind us what they're fighting for. In contrast, the aesthetics of espionage thrillers tend toward grimness. Section 31 risks becoming a sea of dark corridors, whispered conspiracies, and morally gray choices with little levity. Without humor, even the most compelling spy story can feel suffocating. Yeoh's Oscar-winning role shows how easily she can pivot between drama and comedy, between kung fu spectacle and quiet heartbreak. If the Section 31 movie taps into that same tonal flexibility, it could bring fresh air to the darker corners of the franchise. Michelle Yeoh as the bridge between two worlds. Yeoh's career has always been about crossing boundaries. She went from Hong Kong action films to Bond girl to international prestige roles, bringing her fierce physicality and regal presence to each project. In Star Trek Discovery, she played two versions of Georgiou, one a principled Starfleet captain, the other a ruthless emperor. That duality makes her uniquely suited to exploring the moral shadows of Section 31. But her performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once shows another side entirely: vulnerability, goofiness, maternal,